I've been speaking with so many people, of course, the big media like New York Times, Forbes magazine, and everything. But the most important thing for me when I speak to people is that people have passion for football. And when you wrote to me, I could just feel that wow, these guys they want to know a lot about football. They already know a lot about football themselves. So of course, I could only say yes when you asked me. So it's absolutely a pleasure for me to be here.
Thank you, Thomas, for your kind words. So we'll just start off by welcoming everyone who's tuned in. It's a big milestone day for us at the Indie Football Podcast. As Anukar sir said, we really wanted someone of note to justify this milestone for us, and of course, Thomas Gronnemark here, who has honed his throwing technique and secured the Guinness World Record back in 2010 for the longest flip throwing. A specialist coach who has worked for football clubs in Denmark and UK to teach players how to improve their throw. Thank you, Thomas, for being here with us. And for someone like me who's still learning a lot, who's still studying football, the first question I'll just deep dive and ask you: how has the throwing technique really changed over the years? As in, how was it traditionally when you had first started off in the sport of football, and how have you seen it change over the years till today?
Yeah, first of all, I'll say that a lot of people think that I'm only working with throw-in technique and without throwing, but I'm actually working with everything around throw-ins in the football match. So yes, of course, I can learn players to throw longer, more precise. Most important. Are you hearing him? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I think maybe it was my connection. But again, back to your question, you asked me with throw-ins how it has developed. So I'm doing more than just the throw-in technique. I'm working with everything around the throw-ins that you can imagine. So the most important thing is team space creation. So how to create space. So when you have a throw-in all around the pitch, you can keep the ball, create a chance to score a goal after throw-in. And also oppositely, when your opponents have a throw-in, how can you make the space as small as possible? Now, of course, you can't mark the whole pitch, but with different techniques and different strategy, you can take the ball from the opponent. So to cook it all down, that's my approach to throw-ins. And I started almost 20 years ago in 2004, and I was totally under pressure when the players are marked. They lose the ball in more than 50% of the innings. So if you do the same with your feet in the middle of the pitch, you won't be playing professional. You'll be only playing like Sunday league, like really amateur. So, but no one were really interested in the throwing. Only me. So of course I started on the highest level in Denmark already the first year, but I had to wait until 2018 to get my international breakthrough, and maybe that'll be one of your questions. But in 2018, Jurgen Klopp called me. So the throw-ins have changed a lot since I started as a throw-in coach.
Absolutely, Anukar sir. I think it's just one of the nitty-gritties in the sport of football when Thomas mentioned about space creations in the football field, right?
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, honestly, like I have been watching Liverpool since 2006, and when I first heard that we were going to hire a throw-in coach, I swear I was a bit skeptical. But as soon as I saw the throw-ins improve, and as soon as I saw that how each set piece would count, we saw how one set piece was actually pivotal in Liverpool beating Barcelona a few years back in the fourth goal, and we have just seen that how taking those throw-ins early, being able to and we have seen how amazing Joe Gomez has been whenever he has, had those long throw-ins. And I'm sure Thomas has worked with him also in the past. And like we saw against in the Liverpool match with Nottingham last week, in which Nottingham were able to counter through a lot of throw-ins. So we have seen like the game evolve through the years. I remember how happy I was when I read this news that Thomas had signed an extension with Liverpool last, I think it was last year. So I know how things have changed, how the perception of the game has changed. And I just know that the modern game is a lot more than just about goals and free kicks and assists. It's a lot more about the technicalities of it, and that is what makes it more interesting. And the role of people like Thomas even more elaborate in the greater scheme of things.
Absolutely. Thomas, I'll just be honest in mentioning how I wanted to go through whatever interviews you mentioned just at the beginning. You have done more than 500 interviews in the last 5 years. In one of the interviews where, you were asked about how the throw-in entire thing has changed, you mentioned about how it can't be too high because it's too easy to defend or too difficult to flick on. So can you please elaborate on these small details where you mentioned it's important to have tall players? One caveat, one additional dimension that I would like to have your advice or opinion on is, of course, most teams have taller players these days, but suppose back in 10-15 years, not all teams had tall players. So for a team that is generally shorter in height, how much does the tactics dynamics of throw-ins change?
Yeah, it means a lot. No matter what size team you have, you can work on like the team space creation. And let me start by saying what's bad to do. So again, when you're listening now, you shouldn't do this. So some of the most common mistakes is that if a player is marked and he receives the ball close to the thrower, then you are in a high pressure zone. So it means that first of all, the receiver of the ball gets high pressure, and even if you do like a return pass to the thrower again, he will also again be in high pressure because the receiver is too close to him or her. So that's very bad. I see a lot of the best teams in the world do that often. Another common mistake is that a lot of teams are just hurling the ball down the line in a big bunch of players. And then it's a headed duel. You have to flick it on with your head. And the challenge there is that the defending team has a lot, how can you say, better chance of taking the ball. So if you have to throw in as an attacking team, you have to avoid to hurl it down the line in a big bunch of players. So what you want here is like create different kinds of space, and some people think that okay, I'm working a little bit like American football with only a few solutions, or like a traditional set piece coach like who takes corner kicks. We do this and this. No, I'm working with I'm learning players to see the space and then see a lot of different solutions in the different parts of the pitch. So I might have all in all around the pitch like perhaps 50 different solutions, but these 50 different solutions, you can make them in thousands of ways because you have different amount of players, you have different distances, you have different timings, and things like that. So for me, that's much more dangerous. So when you are at your own penalty area, you have some solutions. When you are when you are at the middle of the pitch, you have some solutions. When you are close to the opponent's penalty area, you have some solutions. And at the opponent's penalty area, you can either take it long if you're that kind of team, or you can create space, inside the penalty area or somewhere else. So it's really depending on what type of team you have. And then I'm also looking a lot at what I also call the opponent's defending patterns. So how does the
Yeah.
opponent stand when you have a throw in? That's really important because there's no perfect way of marking. The opponents have always some kind of weakness in their marking. And then I'm also looking at, of course, the formation that the team I'm coaching is playing, also the playing style and so. And then like the last thing I'm looking at is what I call individual throw-in superpowers. It means that some players are fast, they are good at counter-attack throw-ins, running behind the defense. Some players are good at the first touch, they're good at return passes, receiving the ball. Some players are physical strong, they're good at protecting big boxes and play side passes. some players are good at seeing and creating space, so they're often good at creating space for their teammates. So all these things I take in consideration when I'm building a throw-in strategy for the teams.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty enlightening for all of us over here, given how much attention to detail you speak over here. And I'm going to ask a small question to Anukash before I come back to you, Thomas, again. Anukash, you are considering you are such a big Liverpool fan, and all these details that Thomas just spread out in terms of what kind of physicalities you need. Whom do you think is the best throw in player for Liverpool right now?
I think honestly, like Trent and Robbo have been doing a lot of throwing duties over the last few years, especially with their fullback positions. Though Thomas, I have a question from you only. That since recently they have switched in roles, like Liverpool have kind of started playing with three centre backs, and Trent has gone into that midfield role. So, what do you like? Who do you think remain the most ideal people when it comes to throw-ins? And how do you see that helping them offensively when it comes to set pieces?
Yeah, I'll say first of all, the last many years, like you said yourself, is the most dominant players have been Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robo, because they're fullbacks and they've been taking a lot of the throw-ins. Actually, we are one of the strategies I'm working with, and my philosophy is called the long, fast, and clever throw-in. And in the middle part, the fast throw-ins. Our philosophy in Liverpool, but also all the other clubs I'm training all around the world, because I'm not only training Liverpool, but the fast throw-in philosophy is the nearest player, or the player who's nearest to the ball when it goes out, he takes the ball fast. And if there's a good option, he take it. But if there's not a good option, he leave the ball to the fullback, and then we create space afterwards. So
Okay.
yes, they have. Of course, it's been Robo and Trent who has had the most influence on the throw itself. But again, it's important for me to say that when we create space, it's the whole team who's involved. Of course, it's not all 10 outfield players. You're just running. Of course, you're running from the position you are in, of course. But it's a team thing here. So because earlier, like just if you just go 10, 20 years back, it was a little bit like if the team lost the throw-in, it was only the thrower's fault. But now we know that we are really depending on the space created out on the field. So I think it's not only the responsibility of the thrower. It's the whole team, also the coaches, that we are making good throw-ins. And again, then back to your comment about a new system. Yeah, it's totally right that when we play attack, then Trent, he goes out like inverted fullback, at least when we are playing. He's still taking the throw-ins when we have a throw-in, and then when we're defending, he's like still often defending as a fullback. So, but it's really exciting with the new position with Trent, because he can now, instead of just playing from the fullback position in the right side, he can now be in the middle and actually play passes in 180
Right.
degrees. And I've not only seen it in the matches like you have seen, but I've seen it in training. Like 2 weeks ago, I was a whole week in Liverpool, and what he does is Trent is magical from that inverted position. And like you all, of course, know that he been making 5 assists in the last 4 games, and
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
also say he's been doing the same in training. So that will be that's
yeah.
already now a really good thing for the team, and I think it'll be fantastic for the future too.
By the way, like since you have coached Liverpool when it comes to throw-ins, can you share some interesting anecdotes with players that we can share with our viewers?
I'll say that I'm not so happy to, how can you say too many anecdotes, because I have a lot, but I'm like still coaching the team, and anecdotes, that's often when you look back 10 years back in time and so, and when you're there. So I can't really reveal so much. The only thing I can reveal is that there is a fantastic culture in Liverpool. People are laughing a lot. We're having fun. The players are having fun. The staff is having fun, in between each other. So that's fantastic, and it's probably the workplace I've ever been where we have had most fun. So what we're really good at in Liverpool is that now we have fun, now we're serious, now we have fun. So people are really good at, how can you say, changing between fun and concentration, and that's fantastic, because if you're having fun all the time, you'll never learn something, you'll never be high achievers. And if you're too serious all the time, you get an environment where you are too afraid of making mistakes. And so can you combine, not only in a football club but also in a workplace, can you combine, how can you say, a culture where we have fun, excitement, and then really concentrated and are really good to shift from these areas? Then it's good. So I love to work in Liverpool FC. But again, it's important to say that I'm working in many clubs all around the world, the whole Europe. I've been in Mexico working. I've been in the United States work. I haven't been working in India yet, and that's also one of my big dreams. Not only to work for a club, or visit a club, or visit the federation, do some courses perhaps for the federation so coaches can come, or just visit the country India. So I've never been there before. It seems like a fantastic country.
Absolutely. I feel there are just 2-3 things that I would like to note, probably ask you a bit more on what you have shared with us so far. You mentioned about how you read into the opponent's defensive patterns when trying to make a throw in technique. So, given your experience with Liverpool or with any other club that you're working with, you mentioned in Mexico as well, what are, which are the teams that have probably nullified or had a great bulletproof to whatever throw-in techniques that you have been trying to imbibe in teams like Liverpool and all the other teams that you have been? So as in, does it necessarily have to be a defensively strong team, or is it probably teams who are just in general better prepared to defend set pieces? So what kind of opposition breakdown do you do when trying to read the defensive plays of your rival teams, basically?
Yeah, first of all, I'll say I don't do any defending. How can I say, I don't do any opponent's analysis before the game. I always do after. I've been analyzing all Liverpool's games the last 5 seasons, but after the game has been played. So of course I could do the other thing too, but I'm not hired for that. But for me that's not so important, again, because what I learned the players is, again, like I said before.
There's some connection issue, I guess. Louis, can you hear Thomas properly?
Yes, I can hear Thomas. So probably
Yeah,
Anukash can
yeah.
Yeah,
sort his
yeah, okay.
network thing, but I can hear you, Thomas. So
Okay,
you
that's
can go.
perfect. Okay, so again, to break it down, to take one throw in. So the first thing you do is the ball goes out, and the nearest player gets the ball. If there's then you scan. If there's a good option, then you throw it. And of course, already there you're scanning after the opponent's defending pattern. So that's like a really, really fast scan. Throw it if there's a good option. If there's not a good option, don't throw it. Okay, let's say there's not a good option. We can't throw it. Then if it's the fullback, he keeps the ball, of course. But if it's not the fullback, you give the ball to the fullback. And then again, you're scanning the opponent's defending pattern, because yes, the opponent are +1 inside the pitch, like 10 versus 9 if you're not counting the goalkeepers. And some will say, oh, they're +1. Yeah, but we are 1 versus 1, or 2 versus 2, or 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4 in some zones. And then we know that there are some places where we can use, how can you say, the advantage of being the same number of players as the opponents. Of course, if you are in a sandwich where you have a teammate who's 1 against 2 or 2 against 3, you'll probably not use that area. But it just means that you have more players other places. And
Yeah.
so you scan that. Where is it good? And sometimes you can be lucky, just throw into that area. But normally it's not enough just to throw it in there where they're weak. You have to create that space first, and you have to use long runs, you have to scan where are your teammates, and then there are different kind of space. You might have a space after 3 seconds. You might have a space after 7 seconds or 12 seconds. And then how can you say, you see the different spaces, and then suddenly you take a decision. And this decision can both be, how can you say, a decision where we just keep the ball and have control. It could also be a decision where we say, oh, this is great space to create a chance. But it can also be sometimes what I call a low risk, high reward throw-in. And with that, I mean that, let's say we have a throw-in in the middle of the pitch. We get it pretty fast. Then there's a run behind the defense. And we throw it down behind the defense because we can see the run. The good thing here is that even if we lose